number of reasons. And wherever you are in the workbook, if you're following along with us, I know some of you are actually doing it, and we're doing the workbook prior to the beginning of this live stream a little over a month ago. So wherever you are, I hope that you're finding these messages and these short talks, because they're short, they're 15 to 20 minutes, but I hope that you're finding something of value for yourself as you continue this journey, because it is a journey and it is a process. So wherever you find yourself, whether you've done this 30 times or whether you're just picking it up for the very first time, what really is important here in the workbook is that there's a recognition that will really help us, that this is going to bring out all of our stuff. It's going to bring up our limiting stories about ourselves. It's going to bring up our limiting beliefs. It's going to challenge us. It's going to cause us, and the workbook even says this, sometimes intense resistance, fervent and strong. And that is simply because we're so conditioned to seeing ourselves a certain way, to believing certain things about ourselves, that we literally have difficulty seeing differently. We have difficulty seeing things in a different light. Yet that is, as we all deep down realize, exactly what is required in order for us to grow, in order for us to change our minds in the way that this course, and in fact, all authentic spiritual traditions would have us do. It's all a journey. It's all a reawakening. It's an awakening to love, being the experience, the presence of who we really, truly, at our core, the very essence, are. It's going to bring up ego resistance. We can count on that. So one of the things that I see, and this is really one of the reasons that I'm leading with this today, we'll get right into the lesson for today, is that in leading workbook groups and in blogging about the workbook for students, I've found that people stop themselves at a certain point based on a preconceived notion, such as, I can't meditate. Hear that a lot. I'm a meditation instructor. I've heard that a lot, all the time, right? I can't do this. That's a limiting belief, isn't it? It's a story that we tell ourselves. I can't go forward with these exercises. Why? Well, I forget to do them every day. Or if it calls for 6 practice periods one day and I only do 1, then I'm doing it wrong, aren't I? Well, no, you're not. The fact that you're here watching this, the fact that you've opened this book, and the fact that you've done 1 practice period is of tremendous value. And we're talking about the long haul here. Long term, it's of tremendous value. The purpose of this course, and Jesus specifically tells us this in places, is to save time. Time is for us to have the experiences we need to have in order to awaken. That's what it's for. In truth, there is no such thing as time. There is no linear time in truth. Now we're having the experience of linear time. Why? Because we have these lessons that are presenting themselves to us to learn. What is everything for? We're leading right in to today's lesson in the workbook. It's for our own best interest. Everything we see and experience is for our own best interest. Certainly doesn't feel like that in the heat of the moment, does it? But it's true. It's true. It's for our awakening. It is so we can use this moment, this opportunity, this human lifetime to wake up. Everything we see, in fact, serves that purpose. As we'll see today, when we look at Workbook Lesson 28, we assign a different purpose to everything based on our preconceived notions, based on what our parents told us, what society tells us, which is based on what other people's parents told them, and their society in their day and age told them, and so on and so on. In other words, we're seeing things without really seeing them, and we're defining them based on the past. We're defining things, ideas, people. Think of how powerful that is. It's not just objects. It's not just something that you see when you look out a window saying, I see a tree, I see a cloud. We define people based on the past as well. Think of how damaging that can be in a personal relationship, to define somebody based on the past, to define someone based on an argument that you had last week or last year, maybe a decade ago. When you see someone today, when you see this person, let's say it's in a relationship, okay, if you see your partner today and you're defining them based on an argument you all had a couple of years ago, who they are now is not who they were a couple of years ago. Everyone changes. It may feel like some people stay stubbornly, persistently, hard-heartedly the same, but it's not true. It's not the same person. The past does not exist. And we're running around here in the present moment, the only moment, incidentally, that we have, seeing things based on the past. And today's lesson talks about just this very thing. Now, the bolded text here, the idea for today is, above all else, I want to see things differently, right? Above all else, I want to see things differently. This is important. It's obviously an extension of yesterday's lesson, which says, above all else, I want to see. Now it's, above all else, I want to see things differently. We're assigning a priority to seeing things differently. Yes, and it also implies that we could see things differently, and we will end up seeing things differently. The only question, as it says in a lot of different ways in A Course in Miracles, is how much time we need to get there. The object of these exercises is to change our minds and save ourselves time. That's it. It's to save ourselves time, to save ourselves possibly multiple lifetimes of frustration on the journey. And it is, it's a process. I mean, if you liken it to a journey, roll with that, because you could see it that way. You could completely see it that way, even though ultimately there's no place to go. We're here, we've always been here. But because we're not having that experience, we need spiritual practice. We need forgiveness. We need to change our mind's orientation from the body to spirit. And today's lesson is really great in a number of regards, because it's asking us to make a commitment. It is. This is a commitment. It's a commitment that you make to yourself. It's a commitment that you make to other people. It's a commitment to begin to change your mind. Now, we're not being asked to have a blinding flash, however improbable that may be. I had a teacher once, a Buddhist teacher, who said, who knows when enlightenment will come? Can we say? And of course, the answer is, well, no. No, in time, we really don't know. So let's do what we can right now in the present moment to bring about the change of mind so that we'll experience our lives differently. And start with that. Because really, what this statement says, above all else, I want to see things differently, it does imply that we're not seeing. Separation is not seeing. Seeing objects as separate from other objects is not seeing the object. It's seeing the past, but it's not seeing them as they are. Seeing a person as a separate person running around in a separate body, a different gender, having a separate experience is not seeing who they really are. And it's not seeing yourself as you really are. That's an important point. If you don't see people as they really are, you don't see yourself as you really are. The two are completely interrelated. In fact, they're not separate at all. They're one and the same. So when you see one thing differently, you see everything differently. This is a direct quote from the workbook today. When you see one thing differently, you will see everything differently. So the workbook exercises seem kind of matter of fact for today. And it asks a nice rhetorical question. Why would you want to see this table differently? And what's it for, right? What's it for? Well, it's to put stuff on. I'm at a stand-up desk right now. I'm actually seated at this stand-up desk, but I'm at my desk. I've got this laptop computer and a ring light on me. I've got paintings, a Navajo rug, a couple of masks, and you can see the light switches in the wall behind me. All right, what's this table for? Well, I've got my computer on. It's to put things on. I've got a couple of pens. I've got a folder. I've got a couple pieces of paper. There are a couple people's business cards sitting here. All right. So how do I know that's what this object is really for? Well, if we think about it, it's based on our past association. What's a table for? It's to put things on. That's a message that we get from a very young age. It's based on our past experience. And a dinner table, you put plates on. You might put a vase with flowers on. You might put a fork and knife to set the table for dinner, maybe a placemat. Maybe you don't put anything at all on the table. It's just sitting there. And maybe you have everything else in the world, jackets and purses and all kinds of things, objects piled on it. But what's it really for? And these workbook exercises ask us to just look around for a couple of minutes and say to ourselves that we would like to see it differently. I'd like to see this computer differently. I would like to see that tree differently. I would like to see this concrete wall differently. I would like to see this mask differently. The core point here is what passes for seeing in our world is really looking at the past. And the workbook exercises are cumulative. One day after another, it's a comprehensive and brilliantly designed thought system that begins to, well, force is the wrong word, isn't it? Because we all have free will. But it's designed to change our minds and to get us to ask questions, fundamental questions about what we consider reality, the way we're perceiving ourselves, everyone in the world, and the entire world itself. You know, if you're skeptical, I love it. Beautiful, beautiful. I love, by the way, a healthy dose of skepticism when it comes to spirituality. Why? Real spirituality is about asking questions. So ask questions, but leave no stone unturned, so to speak. Ask all the questions. This is what the Course means by holding out certain elements of our identity, of our ego identity, of our personality. Well, we're willing to forgive this, but not that. We're willing to forgive this person, but oh no, not this individual. No, they wronged me. Right? We're willing to keep some forms of ego identity and give others away. No, this is asking us to entertain and practice giving them all away. What happens when you give it all away? You no longer identify with the ego. That's where we're all headed. So, very important workbook lesson for today. And let's take some questions if you have them. And as you know, here on the live stream, I'm more than happy to jump in. And if you have questions live, feel welcome to ask them because we have time here. I like to leave a little time. So Andrea, good afternoon. How are you? Robert, hello. And Carol Ann, thank you all for joining. Deirdre, yes. And well, Deirdre writes, consciously switching perspectives is a fun homework assignment. Oh, cool. I like this. Yeah, we should have fun, right? Laughter is an important component of all spirituality. And I don't know about you, but personally, I always resonate with somebody who's laughing because the way that we get in our own way, the way we mess ourselves up, insert another word for mess that I'm not going to utter on the network here. We mess ourselves up, right? Think of all the ways that we get in our own way. We mess ourselves up as human beings. And we stumble and we create obstacles for ourselves out of thin air. We just make them up and make our lives difficult. And it should be kind of funny when you think about it. I mean, really, laughter is beautiful medicine. So I'm happy, Deirdre, that you're finding this fun. I find it fun too. And sometimes, to be honest with you, when I open up a workbook lesson for the day, I just start laughing because I think of all of the times where I got in my own way. And think about how several years ago, I didn't understand this particular lesson. Okay, well, why would I want to see things differently? Things look real good right now. The first time I went through the workbook, my wife Cindy and I were living in Mexico, and it was beautiful and it was tropical. And we'd sold our house in the United States, in Oregon, where, if you're not familiar with that climate, it's dark and drizzly. And the residents, some of you are watching, thank you for tuning in. I lived there for 23 years under the tyranny of a slow, steady drizzle that falls pretty much every day from October to May. Dark. Now, we'd sold our house there and we were living in Mexico, so I thought I saw things pretty well. Why would I want to see things differently? Well, from the spiritual point of view, from an emotional and psychological point of view, if you're still perceiving yourself as separate and your own needs as different from someone else's needs, then actually not only should you want to see things differently, you need to, ultimately. And it's just a matter of our realizing that. Yeah, and we are literally retraining our minds. Yes. Yeah, people tend to lambast spirituality as mind control, right? Like that's a bad thing, to change your mind and think happier thoughts about yourself and others, right? It is really retraining our mind. That's the level at which we need to retrain. Now, ultimately, we find that we're not our thinking mind at all. We're not our body. That might be easier or not, depending on your own perspectives and the way you've lived your life so far. But ultimately, we're not even that. But this is where we begin to do the work, is at this mental level where we change our minds about who we really are. We then open ourselves to the experience of who we really are. So it's about opening to experience. Meditation is about opening to experience. The workbook for students in A Course in Miracles is about opening to experience. It's all about opening to experience. And hello, Bernadette and Kathy and everyone else watching literally from around the world. This is beautiful. We have a very international contingent here on Enlightened World Network. So I want to invite you, before I wrap up here today, to share this post. Invite your friends, share the live stream, get the word out, invite people to like the Facebook page for Enlightened World Network, because the programming that we're offering here is of such value. It's so valuable to the entire world for people to start teaching. It's valuable to participate in a discussion like this and to show up yourself and do the work that is called for here, whatever that looks like. whatever that looks like for you. We all have different roles to play. And I'm delighted and I'm honored that you are taking the time, many of you habitually every day, to tune in to this live stream. Now, if you're brand new to this, number one, welcome. Number two, start where you are in A Course in Miracles. All of these live streams are available on Enlightened World Network's YouTube page. There's an entire playlist. The title is A Course in Miracles 365, Awakening to Love. And if you have particular questions about your own spiritual practice, about A Course in Miracles in general, feel welcome to leave them here in the comments, as I'm happy to be a resource for you. So thank you for tuning in, and you will see me live here. Again, this is a daily live stream. And if you're just joining me for the first time today, the time you'll see jumps around a little bit. So it's at a different time every day. What I would invite you to do is check Enlightened World Network's show guide. That is the pinned first post on this Facebook page. And it's Enlightened World Network. Check the daily show guide for show times. And I will see you again here tomorrow